I'm on a mission to find gold. Oh, give me a break. You knew that corny pun was coming, didn't you? Hello minders, welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. We're going to do a review today of the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set and the Mijello White Bulletproof Glass Studio Palette for watercolor. Now these two are related because this can be used as a palette, for any paints, but it's specifically designed to go along with this set. And we'll get into that in a minute. Everyone, give it up for my studio partner, Reese. I think this is going to be a pretty cool set, don't you? I mean, single pigment colors, all 24 of them. You've discovered a new pigment? What is it? Bone? I don't think bone can be a pigment. Anyway, let's get into the details, unbox these, and see what this set's all about. Now, with the set, you'll get a pamphlet like this, which shows all the colors. In most respects, unless you're Korean, you won't be able to read it. But it does do a nice job of showing you how to set up the palette if you want to set it up via their full system. Now, what do I mean by system? This is a two-part system. These are not sold together. These are sold as separate products. So you don't have to buy it and use it like a system. But if you decide to, I'll show you how it works. First of all, let's look at the paints. Just really nice, classy packaging. My hat's off to them on that. I mean, they've just gone all out to make sure that this is, consistent with an artist grade product. This is the Mission Gold Pure Pigment set. Now, their whole range is actually 105 colors. And you say, well, what do you mean? What is Pure Pigment set? Now, pigments are governed by standard pigment numbers. So take Ultramarine Blue, for instance, and let me just show you for you beginners who don't know anything about pigment and pigment numbers. Here's an illustration. Ultramarine Blue is a pigment called PB29. PB29 just stands for Pigment Blue 29. And that's a very common pigment, Ultramarine Blue. And pretty much any reputable pigment maker or paint maker that uses high quality pigments will use PB29 for ultramarine blue, and that's the only pigment that's needed to make that color blue. That's called a single pigment color, or in this case a pure pigment color. But now looking at the illustration again, there are a number of colors that are called convenience colors or mixes, in which case they will mix two, sometimes even three or four. I've even seen 4 color mixes. And a convenience color is just meant to save you time in mixing, or if you're not, real adept at mixing, you can buy already mixed colors. All right, so back to this set. What Mijello has done is they have put out a set that uses all single pigment colors. And instead of giving you the convenience mixes already in a tube, they show you how to mix them. Now you say, well, what's the big deal? Why not just buy, this makes 55 color, 54 colors, 53, I forget now. Why not just buy that many? Well, you certainly can, but this is a much more economical way to do it. Number one. Number two, you have a lot more flexibility. You don't have to mix all of these. You don't even have to buy this palette, which we'll look at in a minute. Let's say you wanted another 10 of these mixed colors. Okay, well, buy yourself a palette that will hold 35 colors. Use those mixes and you're all set. The other thing I think it's a big advantage for is beginners, because beginners who don't feel very confident mixing, putting out the colors that they show you, what mixes make what, and what kind of convenience mixes you can arrive at. That's pretty cool, I think. I think this is a great set for someone wanting to start out with a lot of colors and learn their mixing really well. Let's take a look at the palette. This is sort of their flagship top of the line palette. Turn it around here. Now Mijello is a Korean company, as I've said, but they're owned by American art supply maker Martin F. Weber. But Mijello itself kind of got their start in these unique and interesting palette designs, okay? And they are pretty neat. And so here we have two compartments, three nice large mixing areas. Your main wells, I think, are 50, and then they have 4 of these corner wells. But they use a material called bulletproof glass. I'm not sure what the advantages are to that. Maybe they don't, it doesn't yellow. They do stain. I know on my Mijello pan set that they still will stain, but like most plastic palettes. When you first use these, and we'll demonstrate that in a bit because I'm going to put all the paint in this palette. But other than that, it's a really neat palette. One of the innovations I like are these wide segments here. There's 2 here and there's 2 up here. Now that is for big brushes. So when you're mixing a color, mix a big pool, and this, you can pull it over in here and you'll have a place to dip and wipe your brush. So again, 2 components to a system designed to work with each other, but you don't have to buy both. So I'm going to stop the video at this point, and this will probably be an overnight process. I'm going to go fill this palette, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the paint. All right, so I've got this palette set up, and I did it exactly like their directions. And I wanted you to look at this just so you'll understand what you're looking at. You won't be able to tell when you look at my palette. It looks like a mess, but there is some method to the chaos. If you can see these like stripe wells here, these are convenience mixtures that they've set up for you. And basically what they suggest is that you lay in a stripe of that color and a stripe of that color. In this case, 3 colors, a stripe of these 3 colors, okay? Now, mine's set up, and again, I know it just, you can't tell I did it like they did, but it looks like a mess. One of the first things about the color line that I noticed is it's very heavy with reds. A floral painter may love that. Depending on what type of things you paint, you may love that. Me, that's more reds than I would ever use in 3 lifetimes. I wouldn't even use or need half those reds. So the set is very heavy on the reds, but still, given that, I think it's a great color selection. The 24 is a great color selection, and it's a very value laden color selection. Let's see what else. One mistake I made in laying these colors in is just laying in too much on the mixes. It doesn't matter if you're laying in one of the Pure Pigments, you can put in as much as you like. But I laid in these long stripes of color for the mixes, and I wish I hadn't done that because almost all of these need adjustment. And I'm going to show you in a minute how I think you should use them. But I laid in too much paint, and what happens when you do that is you don't give yourself enough leeway for adjustment because it is a mix. You can get it wrong in your amounts. For instance, this mix uses a red, and the red is very, very dominant. And if you just mix the colors in equal parts, you're not going to get the color they're telling you that you should get through that mix. Yeah, so what I'm suggesting is I would only fill it up to about here. Then the second tip I have is let them dry, let them set up. These have set up overnight. Most of them are dry to the touch, but sticky. The consistency, which I was really happy about, is very much like my M. Graham. Now, maybe over time these will get harder, but I know with the Mission Gold pan set, I was very happy with how quickly they re-wet, how easily they re-wet, and these seem to be the same. So we'll get into that in a minute. I tried mixing together and getting the color while these things were still like tube fresh. And when it's tube fresh, you have essentially a paste, like an oil paint paste. That's not the best point at which to mix it because I couldn't see what the color looked like. The best way is to let the stripes dry like this. Then with the color chart that they provided you, look at the color that it's supposed to be. In this case, gamboge. They're using a mix for gamboge. Just re-wet a little of each color. Come out here and look at the color it's supposed to be and just adjust accordingly. See, that's actually more of an Indian yellow. The reason I gave you the tip about coming back in here is I think the orange is dominating this mix group. So I should have just put a little bit back in here, and I could say, okay, I can see whenever I do this mix, I'm going to need a lot of yellow. So just adding a little more yellow now, and I'm pretty close to their gamboge. All right. That's the way to use the system. Let me show you again over here. This is another one which I just went ahead and put in and let set up. And you can see I put way too much in. I should have put a third of that so that I could add more of what I needed to add. So we're going to add a little of this red brown, add a little of this green gold, and bring in the yellow. This one is supposed to be Indian yellow. Okay, so pretty quickly there I got a nice Indian yellow. So that's the way to do it. Don't put in as much so that you can adjust how much that you fill. Let them set up and then dab them out on your palette as individual paints. Do not try to mix the colors in the well, because let me tell you, you will get it wrong. Mix the color right out in front of that well by dabbing into the paint after it's set up. Okay, hopefully clear. That was a very important tip I found. I found the colors to be very intense, very creamy, very much artist grade, and I'm not going to get into that a whole lot. If you have seen my Mijello pan set review, basically they're the same. I mean, their pan set, while maybe being formulated a little differently for the pans, is really the same. Colors are re-wet so quick. That was one of the comments I had about the Mission Gold pan set. Loved how quickly they activated. Now this palette, the studio palette, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it beads up really badly. I've not prepped this surface, but I've prepped the others. I'll tell you how I did it in a minute. But here I'm using their mix, which is number 27, Mijello Blue right here. Sort of an ultramarine violet. So boom. Just by dabbing into the two paints that have set up separately, I quickly and easily got their color. And that is the beauty of the system. That is the way this system, I think, works best. Again, do not mix them in the pan together. Keep them in one well, but keep them as separate dollops, if you will. Beautiful color. Beautiful, beautiful color. Now, one comment about light fastness. I have not tested light fastness on these, and comments have come up. And if you go online and do searches, you'll see some reservations about the light fastness of these. If you notice, at least this is what I found, most of those comments were old. And I did find that apparently their early formulations of these paints did have a few problems. In more recent comments on forums and in places, I'm not seeing really any negative comments. Now let me show you, this maybe not intended, but this is what I think is the coolest thing about these convenience mixes, is not only do they give you a new color, they put colors together that are useful. So you're coming along here, you're painting with the yellow, and that's a nice gamboge, I think. And you're doing a nice wash, okay? And rather than just paint a solid wash to make it interesting, make it variegated with the colors that they gave you. They're very analogous. Well, not quite analogous, but they're harmonious. Analogous enough to be harmonious. I have right at my fingertips colors that work together. Go over here and get a little green gold. And now I've got this wash right here in the center. It's very gamboge, but look how lively, harmonious that is while variegating the color. In the case here, if you're bringing in something like this red-brown, you don't have to jump way up here, you know, to grab that. And then sit here and wonder, oh, which one was it now? Because, you know, when you look at a big pan of it like this, they all look dark. So that's how I would use the system. And it's really no different whether you use this palette or whether, you know, you just use the 24 and only use a few of their mixes. Use it in that way, and I think you'll be great. All right, and last thing, Mijello is known for their kind of innovative palettes. One problem is just like with the metal travel palettes, brand new, paint tends to bead up on them, really badly actually. So these two surfaces I've prepared just using 1500 grit sandpaper, extremely fine, the finishing sandpaper. And it turns the glossy surface into kind of a matte, semi-gloss finish. You see, that works pretty well. Over time, they will spread and hold, and you can see your mixture pretty well. But this will give you a good head start by prepping. This one I didn't. You can see it immediately beads up. Well, that's the only drawback. The other concern I had was this folds up, but it's not something probably you're going to want to do after a heavy painting session, because a number of these, probably these wells are going to be filled with liquid and water, and they're all going to run together. So that's neither here nor there. A lot of palettes fold, but the fact that this has wells on both sides, before you put it away, just keep in mind that if you're choosing this as a palette, you're going to have to let your palette dry before you fold it up and put it away. Okay. My conclusions, just very impressed with these paints. I mean, very impressed. I think as anybody that's bought them has been. I think Mijello has just done a really, really good job on them. Really put first-rate production values into them. I think the system as a whole, the mixing system, is well thought out, but a little over the top. It might have the most value for a beginner. Again, I recommend buying the 24, then just picking the mixtures that you're most likely to use and putting those out on your palette. I hope that helps. If there's something you feel I didn't cover, or you have a question about it, just put it down in the description and I'll be happy to answer as I can. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. If you like this was a help, give me a thumbs up. Thank you patrons for sponsoring me in these videos, and we will see everybody next time.